I'm Seth with the Bearded Butchers. I've got Scott, obviously, who you know. I also have Brandon Haraho. Did I say that right?
You did.
All right, I nailed it.
Nailed it.
From Montana Knife Company. He's a co-owner along with Josh Smith. Flew in from Montana. We're right here in the shop, and today we're featuring a fun project that we've had alongside Montana Knife Company. So we have a 6-inch boning knife and an 8-inch breaking knife. Can you tell us a little bit about designing these and kind of what goes into it?
Yeah, definitely. And before like I even start talking about like the actual specifics of the knives, the thing is like, as Montana Knife Company, as we're growing, like we want to get into different types of models. Like, we started as hunting knives. But the thing is like we want to make culinary knives, and we want to make butchered knives, and we want to make working knives for working people, and that's like, when we're like, okay, so we need some processing knives. Like, who are the two best dudes to go and see? Scott and Seth, like hands down. And like we couldn't have been a better decision, because like they helped us turn this in from like just a general boning and a general breaking knife to like, these are actual working knives that you can use all day long. The handles are super ergonomic, the blade shape, the geometry, everything is meant to be used all day long. They're not just supposed to look nice and pretty, they're not collectibles. I mean, these are actual working knives. The entire shop here is going to be kitted out with them. I mean, they're going to be on the walls. Like these are actually using knives, and they're just like absolutely awesome. It probably took 6-8 months for us to develop back and forth.
At least, yeah. So there was a lot, like Brandon mentioned, months and months went into these. So there was a lot of, hey, take a little weight out here, shave a little off here, make it fit the hand a little better. And we've been fortunate enough to spend, the last 3 or 4 months with one of these in our hand. And I can tell you, 6 or 8 hours of processing an animal like this, we've grown to love these blades. So obviously we've been processing meat for over 30 years, and yeah, we're big fans.
And today we're going to take the knives, we're going to put them to the test on one of the biggest, baddest carcasses that we have to offer. It's a full-blooded American Tajima Wagyu, something that we butcher here in the shop. This carcass, this is just the front quarter, which is about 350 to 370 pounds. The entire carcass weighs 1,230 pounds. So these are about as big as they get. They're about as difficult as they get, just in terms of the size that we have to work through. So today we're going to put it to the test. We're going to cook a gigantic Caveman steak, feed everybody some Caveman tacos. So should be the best way to test these knives out.
The only thing left to do is get the party started.
Do it.
So this first cut that we make is between that 5th and 6th rib, and you absolutely have to have a knife this size to be able to get through that big, solid chunk of meat. You ready for the reveal? I don't know if you're ready. Here it is. Look at that. Gorgeous. Whoa. Good? Yep. Massive. Getting ready to pull the skirt steak out. 6-inch Montana Knife Company boning knife with the Bearded Butcher logo on there. Never before seen colors specifically designed for us, the Bearded Butchers. So I'm gonna start by pulling this outside skirt out. So you have an inside skirt and outside skirt. This piece right here is the outside skirt. So the nice thing about this knife is the flex in the blade. So as I'm cutting this outside skirt off, that blade's actually flexing, and you can see it right there, and it's hitting those rib bones. So as it's going up through there, it's flexing. So I'm able to just cut that outside skirt right off there. Now what I want to do is just pull some of this membrane off. You can see that beautiful marbling in that meat. So we pull the membrane off the first side, and then we flip it over and get the membrane off this side. So it's just a combination of using your fingers and the knife and just pulling all that membrane off there. Just do a little bit of trimming. And there you have an outside skirt. Grill that up, make some tacos. I guarantee it, they're going to be amazing. This is a beef plate. This has that inside skirt located right here, but that's an entire beef plate. Giant set of beef ribs. So I'm gonna save the 6th, 7th, and 8th long bone beef ribs off of here. So we're just gonna use the 8-inch breaking knife, go right down in between those ribs. And what we wanna do next is we wanna remove this fat and this little piece of meat off the back and just save this real nice marbled piece of meat here on the center attached to the ribs. And that's gonna make an awesome set of beef ribs to barbecue. So we're just gonna remove this fat on the back of this. You can see all that nice marbling in there. Let's get a little bit more of that exterior gristle off there. There you have a nice set of beef ribs ready to go on the smoker with that gorgeous marbling. So we start by just removing these feather bones off the back. Staying as nice and close to that bone as we can. So there's a seam right here that I'm following, and this just requires a little bit of knife work and then a lot of just pulling. Pull that cap off there. That's just a fat cap. That's not a spinalis. The spinalis is still located right here on the top of this ribeye, or this rib section. The yellow cord off there. Now what I want to do is remove these backbones. So this is just a beef backbone. You go into the store and you want to barbecue up some beef back ribs, this is what you're going to get. You always have to be a lot more careful when an animal is super fat like this, because it's a lot easier to cut yourself trying to get your knife through that, all that hard fat. One thing I noticed with these Montana Knife Company knives is how awesome the edge holds up on these. So the first time I had one of these in my hand, I think I spent probably the first 3 to 4 weeks before I even went to our stone and actually used it on the stone. So all I would do just periodically is just kind of a routine maintenance. is just hit this knife on my honing rod, which doesn't remove any metal flakes, by the way, and just realign that blade on the, all it does is roll the edge back into shape. So it straightens the edge. So periodically just hit it on your honing rod and then right back into business. Just a little bit more prepping. Any of this pre-trimming that I do now is less that I'll have to do later on each individual steak. So that's why I do some pre-trimming. But that's an entire beef ribeye section ready to get cut into some steaks. Scott, how thick are we cutting these ribeye steaks for the case? Are we going super thin, or are we doing just it's gonna be kind of hard to get them super thin?
You don't have to go super thin, but I would shoot for like that 5/8. It don't have to be that thin. I mean, a 1/16 would probably be good. Hey, we got to save this rack of ribs, just so you know, for that order.
We're ready to cut some ribeyes. Look at that marbling.
So Seth, you've been butchering for 30 plus years now. I'm sure you used plenty of different knives in your career, but obviously one in particular. What is it like using this knife after using one knife for so long?
So the cool thing about designing these knives is that we obviously have been butchering for 30 years, just over 30 years. So we had such a huge part in being able to go back and forth with Brandon and Josh at Montana Knife Company on the weight of the knife, the thickness of the handle, the flex of the blade, all of that stuff. And after we went through all of that, we were able to achieve something that we didn't really differentiate a whole lot from what we had been using. So muscle memory is key when you're in this business, and everything down to the tip of the knife blade to, everywhere your hand placement is, how you use your wrist, the angle that you're going to use your knife, it's all very important. So for us to be able to pick up this knife right where we left off and just start using it and have it be comfortable, not get hand fatigue throughout the day, it's been fantastic. So
what you're saying is it's the perfect butcher knife.
We think so, yes.
If
it wasn't the perfect butcher knife, then we wouldn't put our name on it. So the only thing better than standing here salivating over these while I'm cutting them is to actually eat one. Because like this steak right here, I always mention how near the end of this ribeye section where it meets the chuck, you have a bigger spinalis. You can just see compared to some of these other ones, there's less gristle, bigger spinalis, just an overall fantastic steak. What I think we should do is we should take this steak, send it out to the guys on the Breeo, and have them grill it up real quick and bring it in and sample it. What do you guys think? Yeah? All right. Spencer was just commenting on how my thoughts on what one of these steaks would taste like. And I was wondering if I could give this steak to you and you can take it out and throw it on the fire pit.
Yeah, I'd be very glad to take that out there and cook it.
There's no point
Looks
talking
amazing.
about what it would taste
I know.
like. You just taste it.
We've got the Breeo outside. We've got Jesse. He's going to go throw this on the fire pit, and we're going to sample it here in a second.
Meat and fire.
Appreciate it.
Let's do it.
You guys grab big
The
pieces, and I'm
cooks
going
and
to cut
the
them
camera
down.
people get to eat first. Don't ever know.
Yeah, they won't.
What are you guys doing? I looked through this window, I was like, they're eating already.
Thank you.
Feed him before he gets angry.
I literally looked out the window.
Scott needs a piece of steak.
These guys are outside eating all the steak.
I have to hold
I
my
looked
fingers
out the
down.
window and all I could see was and lips and jaws moving.
Oh, did you get some?
Did I get some?
Oh, man.
Kudos to the cook.
Yeah. Ribeyes are cut. So we're gonna get these all stacked up. We've got a couple headed to the Breeo to get cooked. And then I'm gonna move on with cutting up the remaining portion of this beef front quarter. So those are gonna go on somebody's grill and they're gonna be absolutely thrilled.
What are your guys' favorite cuts?
Favorite cut. I love tri-tips. Tri-tips are really hard to beat. If I was gonna pick a steak, it'd have to be a ribeye, personally.
I'm with you on the tri-tip. Like that's what we usually buy as a family, more than not. But also, you can't go wrong with a ribeye.
Yeah.
You know.
Just remember, like when you go to look for them, try to pick one of these. Like I mentioned, like these up here closer to this chuck end. So like when we made that cut up here between the 5th and 6th rib, these ribeyes up here towards this chuck end are, in my opinion, they're a lot better. So like when you go to the store, you can see these look more like a strip steak.
Yeah.
So these are up towards that strip loin end. These have more gristle, like you're just gonna be kind of picking around a little bit more when you eat it. But like with this one, you can grill this one up and then just slice pretty much the whole thing and just like, it's a little bit better bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Meat and spices have gone together for centuries. And for well over 2 decades, the Bearded Butchers have been formulating our proprietary spice blends right out of our home butcher shop here at White Feather Meats. So we have over 10 different unique flavors of spices that you can put on your steaks and all your grilling items in both shakers and in bags. And we have a ton of our sausage and bratwurst recipes available, along with all the other ingredients that we have for your DIY products. So visit us at beardedbutchers.com or look for us in a retail outlet near you. We're in over 3,000 stores nationwide, and I'm certain that you will love the products you find from the Bearded Butchers.
So with this brisket, what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this bone out of here. This breastbone, the sternum bone right here. Here again, there's a seam. So we're just gonna use that 6-inch boning knife. You have to remember, I've mentioned it already in this video, but I'll mention it again, that this animal is so big and it's super fat. So everything is more difficult. You know, we've been used to using wood handles for 30 years. This is a G10 handle. It's been very comfortable, it's easy to clean, good grip. So it wouldn't matter if I was using this G10 handle or wooden handle on a beef like this. It's just gonna be greasy. So you're gonna see me periodically just give that handle a nice wipe. And then just a little bit more trimming here. So depending on how you're gonna cook this brisket, whether it's, you know, a charcoal grill, a pellet grill, or what you're gonna be doing with it will depend on how much you should trim it. But I will take a little bit of this fat cover off of here because when the customer comes in to buy it, we don't want them to buy something with just a ton of excess fat on it, but we will leave some, that way they can choose how they want to finish it. So that's a Wagyu beef brisket, all ready for your smoker. This is the entire beef chuck, and we're gonna break this down into flat irons, chuck eye steaks. We're gonna get some short ribs out of it. So we'll dissect that down here in a second. So to remove these chuck ribs, we just wanna follow this seam right here and just use that 8-inch knife to cut that whole section off of there. The chuck ribs are 4 ribs long, so we just go 4 ribs long. And we have this nice chunk ready to go on the smoker. Put all that marbling in there. Now all somebody has to do is get them cooked up. This is that tire beef chuck, and we're gonna pull the flat iron out of here and the chuck eye steaks. But if you really want to get your forearms burning, this is where you're gonna do it. So we just want to work at getting this cap, this entire cap off of here. Here again, it's just a mixture of knife work and pulling. Pull this top blade. So we want to just follow the top of that shoulder blade. Pull this whole top blade roast off this shoulder blade. This is what we'll cut into flat iron steaks. So we'll do some further trimming on that, make some flat iron steaks out of that. Let's pull this tire shoulder blade out. Here again, this is where you want that flex of that blade so that you can really get that blade up in there along that bone. So you want that nice flex. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this entire chuck roll out. So typically this piece right here is made into chuck roast, but on this Tajima Wagyu beef, we're gonna cut some chuck eye steaks out of here because those are way too nice to not cut into a steak. It's what the Native Americans used to use for bubble gum. On piece, Riley?
Yeah.
Just put it down the hatch. We do occasionally eat this raw. This
Really?
Wagyu beef, yeah, it's really good raw. Let's do a little bit of prepping on this chuck roll, and then we'll be able to start cutting some steaks. And try a little piece?
Sure.
I'll feed you. Try some?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I'll take some.
Grace?
Thank you.
Not good.
Yeah.
Just raw.
Yeah.
No salt.
Nothing. That's wild.
Not good.
Yeah.
You think, Spence?
That's pretty good. That's my first time having raw beef, I guess.
It's not offensive at all.
No.
These are those last 3 ribeyes on the ribeye section closest to the chuck. So if you look here, we would have just picked right up right there on that chuck. So ribeye, 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 broke that animal down between the 5th and 6th rib, and then we started chuck eye steaks. So these, when you think about chuck eye versus ribeye, that's why the chuck eye is so fantastic, because they're the next door neighbor. So on a budget, a chuck eye, still fantastic steak. Let's cut some flat iron steaks out of this Tajima. So first off, I want to just stay real close to the top of that membrane. So you want to clean up the top of this roast Get that silver skin off of there. So once we get that done, we'll work on the bottom. Get the silver skin off this side. Now what we want to do, there's a seam that runs through the middle of this. We want to get that seam out of there. Or we want to get that gristle out of there. So we just take our knife and follow right along that gristle line. So we have one piece here. Just some, that's a gorgeous piece of meat there. And then we flip this over and we do sort of the fish fillet method here. Get a little bit more of that gristle off there. So once again, this is that top blade roast that we're cutting into individual flat iron steaks. Just a very, very nice cut. Second most tender steak on a beef next to the fillet. So you have the filet mignon and then you have the flat iron in that order in tenderness. So there you have a nice stash of beef Tajima Wagyu flat iron steaks.
Are you gonna cut a Denver off there too?
Oh, I should.
What's a Denver?
About to find out. We're gonna cut a beef Denver steak. A lot of folks don't know what it is, but right here on the top of these chuck ribs, you have this nice slab of meat. We're gonna pull this whole slab off of here. So normally this would get cut into some short ribs. But today we're doing beef Denver steak. This is the piece that I like to use to make beef burn ends, just because the marbling is so nice in it. So you can cook it as a whole piece, you can cut it down into steaks, you can make beef burn ends, you know, whatever you choose. But if you ever have a chance to go into a store and find a beef Denver, I highly recommend it, just because it's such a nice piece of meat. And here again, like that flat iron, we want to get that gristle off that outside. Entire beef Denver steak. Yeah, that's just a beautiful piece of meat. Gorgeous. So what you see right here is some of the more popular cuts on a beef front quarter. Just going down through real quick, we have a couple boneless chuck roasts, we have the inside, outside skirts, we have those back ribs, we have some nice ribs off that plate area, we have the chuck ribs, the 4-bone chuck ribs, we have a brisket, we have ribeyes, chuck eye steaks, flat irons, a Denver. So that's pretty much the prime cuts that you would get off of a front quarter. Next up, let's break into the hind quarter. Start by removing this beef rose meat off this flank. Once we get this off of here, we'll get this flank steak portion off, and then we'll pull the flank steak out. So this is your flank steak. First thing we want to just pull this membrane off of here. And we'll get our fingers underneath this flank steak. Just pull this out.
So what was the one flat steak that was on the flat iron that you just cut before?
Yep.
Front? So you have skirts, you have flat irons, and flank steaks.
Yep.
And then they're all similar, they look similar, but they all have different.
they come from different areas. Similar, look similar, have similar like fibers and marbling, like the way that the grains go. So similar, but yeah, all different from different areas. This is the tri-tip. So get that tri-tip pulled out of there, and then we'll get it trimmed up. These are just absolutely delicious to cook. So now that I have that tri-tip broke off this hind quarter, we're going to do a special treat today for everybody that's here. Our crew, MKC, Breeo, everybody that's here, our team over at our headquarters building, and we're going to cut out a caveman steak. We're going to cut out a massive caveman, put it on the Breeo. We're going to build some tacos, and I'm going to show you where a caveman steak comes from. So the old 96er. This one's gonna be a little bigger than 96 ounces, but this is where it comes from. Everything about this is just, this beef is just harder because it's so big. That's a beast. So before we get to that caveman steak, we're gonna dissect all the cuts out of this hind, or this loin. So we have the tenderloin, the fillet, and the strip all out of this loin. First thing we're going to do is pull this whole tenderloin out, and then we'll cut this into some fillets. So there you have an entire beef tenderloin that we'll trim up for fillets. Got a walrus in the house. I think they're talking about smelling salts. I need some about right now. Got any, Ben? This thing is working me. You got some? Bring them on over here, old son. Worn off. Whew. Oh yeah. That'll get me through the rest of this beef. Beef sirloin. So all I'm doing is making it boneless. I'm taking this hip bone out of here. So these three pieces right here, you have tenderloin for fillets, sirloin for sirloin steaks, and then this is the strip loin for strip steaks. Beef strip loin. So what I'm doing is I'm just prepping it to cut into some strip steaks, or I should say Tajima Wagyu beef strip steaks.
They're not your everyday strip steaks.
No, not at all. And we had just tried a sample of that ribeye. Those were fantastic. And the nice thing about the strip steaks on these animals is they're just as marbled. So I know they're going to be fantastic as well. So something I do want to mention with our partnership with Montana Knife Company is they have a Generations Program. So that at any point you feel like this knife needs to be sent back, you can send it back to Montana Knife Company. Most times they'll send it back to you like the following day once they receive it. So super fast return Generations Program, which means that this knife is literally going to last generations. So from you down to your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, that's what that program is for. So as long as this knife is in your family, they're going to take care of you. Something else is that it is 100% American made. So American made knife with a Generations Program, you bet we're going to be on board. pan over here once. This guy over here, he just asked if we wanted any content of cutting vegetables. Vegetables.
Get out.
Get out! We'll get the vegetable content right after we shave our beards. Get out! We're packing for a trip to our hunting cabin. Anybody that knows us and knows the Bearded Butcher brand knows that we absolutely love to spend time in the outdoors with family, especially at our hunting property in southern Ohio. So when we pack, I can guarantee we're gonna take some Bearded Butcher snacks with us, whether it's some of our original beef jerky, one of the 4 flavors of beef sticks that we offer, original hot honey or jalapeno and cheddar, some summer sausage, cut that, eat it with some crackers and cheese around the wood stove. That's what's going in my bag when I head to our property. So whether you're hiking, hunting, fishing, camping, go check out beardedbutchers.com and grab some of our snacks to take with you on your next adventure. Strip, sirloin. Now let's prep this tenderloin. We're gonna take the chain off of it. Just this tail portion. Once we get all that off there, we're gonna remove this silver skin right here on the top. Beef fillets are up first. So we're going to cut these into individual steaks. Just a nice 1.25 to 1.5 inches thick. Nice 10 to 12 ounce portion.
It's crazy to see how much less marbled fillets are, even on Wagyu, than like a ribeye.
Isn't
or a
it
strip.
crazy? Yeah, that marbling doesn't, that intermuscular fat doesn't flow through on the fillet like it does the ribeye. Which everybody pretty much knows that a fillet obviously is a fantastic steak, but for tenderness, but when it comes to flavor, if you truly want that flavor, you got to go with a ribeye or something that has more of that marbling like Spencer mentioned. So before I cut this whole sirloin piece, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this cap. This cap right here is called a picanha. So if you've ever wondered where a picanha comes from, this is a picanha. So boneless sirloin for steaks. Picanha. Get a little bit of this fat trimmed off of here, prep it for the end user.
Those are big, like Argentina and like South America.
Right.
Don't they use a lot of that?
Yep. You know, cooked properly, if you know what you're doing with it, they're excellent. But here again, this is a cut that if we put in our retail store, we almost can't sell it because nobody knows what it is. We just need to do some videos on it and then it'll start selling. Square this up just a little bit. Cut these nice sirloin steaks. Pretty good marbling. Not as much as the ribeye here again, or the strip, but still pretty decent for a sirloin. And you can see there's different sizes obviously as that muscle changes shape and size as I go down through there. The steaks get smaller. So there you have all your sirloins with that picanha right there. That was that cap. Now on to some strip steaks. There's that gorgeous marbling again. Just wrapped up the fillets, picanha, sirloins, and strips. Now on to that caveman we promised you. Okay, on to a caveman. First thing I need to do is remove this shank. Get this hind shank off here, which we'll cut into a Thor's hammer. I'll show you that here in a second. But before I do that, I want to remove this H-bone. So we'll get this, it's called an H-bone. We want to get this off of here. Mentioned this in a lot of our videos, but this is why I wear chainmail, because removing a bone like this is where you're most apt to stab yourself in the hip or the gut or the groin. And that would be a good day. So get that H-bone out of there. Prep this shank a little bit. We'll work on this in a second. Now for that giant caveman steak.
When we cooked that regular grain-fed caveman steak, it was surprisingly tender, and I'm just imagining how much more this is going to be with that fat.
This is going to be amazing. I can't stop touching it. The different parts of a beef round, you can see this muscle right here is the top round. This muscle right here is the eye of round. This one is the bottom round. And then this portion right here is your round tip, otherwise known as your sirloin tip. And then we got that tri-tip right off of this cap. So top round, eye round, bottom, round tip. All of those muscles will be located inside that caveman steak. Next thing is just to take a big old slice off of here. Let's see if those Breeo boys can handle it. What do you think? Think Breeo can handle it? Let's put it on the scale. Do you have an empty lug anywhere? Brady's lug's probably empty. 15.45 pounds, so just under 15 and a half pounds. That's a big chunk of meat. So I'm gonna get Jesse and Drew from Breeo and Josh and Jeremy to take this and get this on the grill. But in the meantime, I'm gonna keep going on some of these cuts. We're gonna cut another one for our store. Let's cut a Thor's hammer. So we just want to remove some of the meat off this shank. So we'll just go all the way around that shank bone, removing the top portion of that meat. This is where it's nice to have an edge that really hangs on for a long time, because scraping that bone, that's where you lose your edge. So it's nice that the steel allows you to keep your edge for a long time. So there's a Thor's hammer. Smoke that low and slow, make some beef barbacoa. It's ready for the smoker. Wagyu top round is what was left off that round when I cut the caveman, but I'm just going to cut some strips for jerky using this 6-inch knife. We want to cut this against the grain like that, so you can see those grains are running this way. That way when you bite into it, it's a nice experience and the pieces pull apart super easy for you. So this blade just glides right down through that meat, making these nice whole muscle strips for jerky. So if you're at home, you save maybe a deer round or something, you want to make some jerky at home, that's how you do it. Hindquarters done. Brandon, you and Josh knocked it out of the park.
Thanks, man. No, seriously.
Love the knives. They worked fantastic. So We're gonna keep cutting. You can see we have another half to go, but in the meantime, like I said, Caveman, this is getting handed over to these guys. It's going to the Breeo. We'll see you over at our brand new HQ building because we're gonna feed the crew. You ready? You hungry? All right, let's go.
Let's chop up some Caveman steak, shall we? Present for the cutting.
Oh yeah.
Get yourself some.
This is like the pineapple cubes where you pull the cube of pineapple out of it, like once it's cut.
Oh, Caveman steak is on point.
You gotta let Jesse get in there.
Yeah, get over here.
I'll sneak in here.
No, he tried that ribeye first, so he can.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Only thing left to do is we're gonna build a bunch of tacos, feed the crew, enjoy the rest of the afternoon over some wonderfully seasoned, wonderfully cut, juicy, tender Wagyu Caveman steak.
People think we're crazy when you cook this like a steak and you cut it up. I mean, that's the proof's in the pudding right there.
It's so tender.
excellent. So good.
All right, let's build some tacos.